SP's desire for you is overwhelming. Love obsession mode on. There comes a moment when you realize that the energy you have been giving away through worry, waiting, checking, wondering, and doubting was never meant to control your life. You may have spent countless moments asking yourself, do they think about me? Do they miss me? Will they reach out? Have they forgotten me? But today you are invited to step out of that restless version of yourself. Stop chasing answers outside of you and begin changing the story within you. Because the moment you stop identifying as the person who is desperately waiting to be wanted, you begin stepping into a completely different emotional reality. You become the person who knows their worth, who expects mutual affection, who no longer needs to force attention, and who understands that the love they desire should be freely and genuinely given. Take a deep breath and let this moment be different. For just a few minutes, put down the old story. Put down the memories of rejection. Put down the fear that you are not enough. Put down the endless need to search for signs. You do not have to keep repeating a painful inner conversation simply because you have repeated it before. You can choose a new assumption about yourself. You can begin to see yourself as unforgettable, deeply valued, naturally attractive, and worthy of the kind of love that feels secure rather than confusing. The greatest transformation begins when you stop making another person the source of your power and start remembering that your own self-concept shapes how you experience love. Imagine what it would feel like to no longer wake up wondering whether you are wanted. Imagine moving through your day with a quiet inner certainty that says, I am lovable, I am memorable. I do not have to chase what is meant to meet me with genuine affection. Feel the difference between desperately demanding attention and calmly expecting mutual love. One comes from fear, the other comes from inner security. And today, we are leaving fear behind. This is your moment to turn down the volume on doubt and turn up the voice that reminds you who you are. Let your inner conversations become filled with the kind of relationship you truly desire: respect, warmth, affection, commitment, honesty, and freely given love. If you want to imagine your SP thinking about you, let that imagination reflect something healthy and beautiful. Not control, pressure, or desperation, but genuine appreciation and a natural desire to connect. So as you listen, allow yourself to enter obsession mode in a new way. Become deeply devoted to your own transformation. Become obsessed with the story that supports your confidence. Become committed to seeing yourself as someone who is worthy of being loved well. Let the old version of you, the one who constantly checks, waits, fears, and chases, begin to fade away. In its place, let a calmer, stronger, more magnetic version of you rise. You are not here to force love. You are here to remember that you deserve love that arrives with clarity. You are here to stop begging for crumbs and start expecting a connection that feels mutual. And from this moment forward, every thought you consciously choose can become a reminder of the reality you want to experience. I am valued. I am desired. I am remembered. I am worthy of deep and healthy love. I release the need to chase because I choose to stand firmly in my worth. Now let the transformation begin. Leave the doubt behind. Release the old story. Step into the feeling of being secure, loved, and appreciated. This is not about losing yourself in another person. This is about finding yourself so completely that you no longer accept anything less than the love you know you deserve. And as your inner world changes, allow your outer experiences to unfold naturally through mutual choice, genuine connection, and the kind of love that never requires you to abandon yourself. This is your moment. Your self-concept is rising, your confidence is returning, your heart is opening, and you are ready to experience love from a place of power, peace, and undeniable self-worth. The first and most powerful shift begins with you. Before you focus on what your SP is doing, what they are thinking, whether they are checking for you, or when they might reach out, take your attention back to the one place where your experience begins, your own inner world. You cannot build a peaceful story while constantly identifying yourself as the person who is ignored, forgotten, rejected, or difficult to love. Every time you repeat the old story, they do not care about me. I am always the one chasing. Why am I not enough? You keep emotionally returning to a version of yourself that feels powerless, but you do not have to continue being that version. Right now, you can begin choosing a new identity. You can become the version of yourself who knows that they are valuable, memorable, attractive, and worthy of genuine affection. This is where your real power begins, not in controlling another person, but in transforming the way you see yourself. Think about the difference between someone who feels they must chase love and someone who feels secure in their ability to receive it. The person who is constantly chasing looks for proof everywhere. They check the phone, analyze every message, watch for signs, and allow every small action to determine their emotional state. But the person who feels secure does not need to force every outcome. They know their value even during silence. They understand that being worthy of love does not disappear simply because another person has not yet provided reassurance. That is the version of you are stepping into now. You are no longer here to beg for attention. You are no longer here to convince someone that you deserve to be loved. You are becoming someone who expects relationships to contain mutual interest, respect, warmth, and freely given affection. So begin asking yourself a different question. Instead of asking, how can I make them obsessed with me? Ask, who am I when I feel completely secure in love? See that version of yourself clearly. How do they think? How do they move through the day? Do they panic every time their phone is silent? Do they spend hours imagining rejection? Or do they carry a quiet confidence that says, I know who I am. I know what I deserve. I welcome love that meets me openly and willingly. Start practicing that identity now. You do not need external permission to feel worthy. You can decide today that the old story is no longer the story you want to continue. Let your inner conversation support this transformation. When your mind begins to create fearful scenes, gently redirect it. Replace the thought, I am always forgotten with, I leave a meaningful impression. Replace, I have to chase love with, I welcome mutual effort. Replace, nobody chooses me with, I choose myself, and I welcome people who freely choose me too. These thoughts are not about pretending that you can control another person's mind. They are about changing the emotional foundation from which you approach relationships. When you stop seeing yourself as powerless, you stop giving every external event the authority to define you. This is your invitation to become deeply committed to your own transformation. Let obsession mode mean becoming focused on your confidence, your self-respect, your emotional security, and your ability to create a healthier inner story. Become so devoted to your own growth that you no longer abandon yourself while waiting for someone else's attention. Feel what it is like to be the prize in your own life, not because you are better than anyone else, but because you finally recognize your own worth. You are allowed to be desired without chasing. You are allowed to be loved without begging. You are allowed to expect honesty, consistency, and genuine affection. And from this moment forward, let this become your new foundation. I am memorable. I am worthy. I am deeply valuable. I do not need to force love. I choose relationships where affection is mutual, freely given, and emotionally safe. I release that version of myself that chases for proof, and I become the version of myself who already knows their worth. Stay with that feeling. Return to it whenever doubt appears, because the greatest change is not becoming someone who can force another person to want you. The greatest change is becoming someone who finally realizes they never had to lose themselves to be loved. This is where your transformation begins. This is where you become impossible to ignore, not by demanding attention, but by becoming fully present in your own value, confidence, and inner power. The second powerful shift is learning to release the constant question, are they thinking about me? And replacing it with a calmer, more empowering inner assumption. I am naturally remembered. My presence matters. I leave a meaningful impression. So often, when you deeply desire a connection with someone, your mind can become trapped in endless questions. You wonder what they are doing. You wonder if they miss you. You wonder whether they saw your message, checked your profile, remembered a conversation, or felt your absence. And before long, your entire emotional state begins depending on information you do not have. One moment you feel hopeful, and the next moment you feel rejected. One small sign makes you excited, while one period of silence makes you question everything. But today, you are stepping away from that emotional roller coaster. You are no longer giving every external circumstance the power to decide how you feel about yourself. Instead, begin creating a new inner atmosphere. Imagine what it would feel like to know that your presence is meaningful, not because you are trying to invade someone's thoughts or control their choices, but because you recognize that genuine connections can leave lasting impressions. Think about the people who have crossed your own mind unexpectedly. Sometimes a song, a place, a memory, or a simple moment reminds you of someone. Human connection naturally creates memories, so allow yourself to stop assuming that you are easily forgotten. Stop repeating the story that says, once I am out of sight, I am out of mind. You can choose a new relationship with yourself, one in which you see your presence as valuable. When the mind asks, what if they never think about me? Do not panic and begin searching for proof. Pause, breathe, return to the identity you are building. Say to yourself, I do not need to chase proof of my importance. I know that I have value. This is a completely different kind of power. It is not the power of controlling another person's mind. It is the power of refusing to let uncertainty turn into self-rejection. You can desire your SP and still remain grounded. You can hope for communication and still enjoy your day. You can imagine a loving relationship without allowing the absence of immediate evidence to destroy your peace. Begin using your imagination in a way that supports emotional security. Instead of replaying painful scenes where you are ignored, imagine a warm and respectful connection. Hear a simple conversation in which you feel appreciated. Imagine the feeling of being remembered fondly. Allow yourself to experience the emotions of affection, connection, and security within your own mind. The purpose is not to force a specific outcome. The purpose is to stop rehearsing fear every day. Your inner world is a place you visit constantly, so make it a place that strengthens you instead of exhausting you. This is where obsession mode can take on a new meaning. Rather than becoming obsessed with checking whether your SP is thinking about you, become committed to the belief that your worth does not disappear when you do not have immediate answers. Become focused on maintaining the version of yourself who feels secure, desirable, and emotionally whole. Let your greatest obsession be your own inner transformation. The more you practice returning to self-respect, calmness, and confidence, the less power fear has over you. You do not need to spend your life waiting for a notification to tell you that you matter. You matter before the message arrives. You matter during silence. You matter whether a relationship unfolds exactly as you imagined or takes a different path. And ironically, when you stop making another person's attention the source of your identity, you become freer to experience connection without desperation. You show up with more authenticity because you are no longer constantly trying to earn your place. So let this be your new inner conversation. I am naturally memorable. My presence has value. I do not need to force myself into anyone's life to believe that I matter. I release the fear of being forgotten. I welcome mutual communication, genuine affection, and freely chosen conversation. I am calm, secure, and confident in my worth. Return to these ideas whenever doubt begins speaking loudly. You are not here to become a prisoner of waiting. You are here to become emotionally free. From this moment, stop chasing evidence and start nurturing the feeling you want to experience within yourself. Let your imagination become a place of peace rather than anxiety. Let your self-concept become stronger than temporary circumstances. And as you move forward, remember this. The most powerful thing you can assume is not that you can control another person's every thought. It is that you are worthy of being remembered, appreciated, and loved in a relationship where desire and affection are mutual, natural, and freely given. The third powerful shift is this. Stop chasing and start feeling chosen. For so long, you may have believed that love requires constant effort, constant checking, constant proving, and constant pursuit. You may have felt that if you stopped reaching out, stopped looking for signs, or stopped trying to make everything happen, the connection would disappear completely. But that belief can create a cycle of anxiety where you are always running after something outside of yourself. Today it is time to step out of that cycle. You can desire your SP without losing yourself in the desire. You can want communication without checking your phone every few minutes. You can hope for love without making another person's response the measure of your worth. The version of you that is stepping forward now understands something powerful. Real connection should never require you to abandon your peace. Imagine the difference between chasing and allowing. Chasing comes from the feeling that something is missing. It says, I have to do more. I have to convince them. I have to get their attention. I have to make sure they do not forget me. But feeling chosen begins with a different inner state. It says, I am worthy of mutual effort. I do not have to force affection. I can be open to love while remaining secure within myself. This does not mean you become passive or pretend you do not care. It means you stop allowing fear to control every decision you make. You no longer send messages simply because panic tells you to. You no longer search endlessly for hidden meanings because uncertainty feels unbearable. Instead, you pause and return to yourself. This is where your inner assumption becomes incredibly important. What if, instead of constantly imagining yourself as the person waiting to be chosen, you began to experience the feeling of being chosen within yourself? Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the emotional state you would have if you felt completely secure in love. Would you feel frantic? Would you constantly question your value? Probably not. You would feel calmer. You would move through your day knowing that love does not have to be chased down. You would understand that the right connection involves two people freely showing up. Begin practicing that emotional state now, not because you are guaranteed to control a particular outcome, but because you deserve to experience peace regardless of what is happening outside of you. When fear appears, notice the story behind it. Perhaps the mind says, if I stop chasing, they will forget me. Replace that thought with something stronger. What is meant to be mutual does not require me to destroy my peace. If your mind says, I need them to prove that I matter, remind yourself, my worth existed before their response, and it remains regardless of temporary circumstances. These statements bring you back to your center. They remind you that another person's behavior can give you information about the relationship, but it does not define your value as a human being. Let obsession mode now become a commitment to your own emotional transformation. Instead of obsessing over when your SP will call, message, confess, or return, become focused on how you want to feel. Become devoted to your peace. Become obsessed with building a self-concept that says, I am loved without chasing. I am valued without begging. I welcome relationships where effort, desire, and affection are mutual. The more consistently you return to this inner state, the less temptation you will feel to run after every external sign. There is a quiet power in no longer needing to force what you desire. You begin enjoying your own life again. You remember your dreams, your interests, your happiness, and your identity outside of one specific person. And from that place, love becomes something you welcome rather than something you desperately chase. You can communicate honestly when it feels right, set boundaries when necessary, and remain open to genuine connection without sacrificing yourself for it. So from this moment forward, let this become your new story. I do not chase love because I deserve love that meets me willingly. I do not have to beg for attention because my worth is not dependent on another person's response. I am secure, valuable, and open to mutual affection. I allow healthy love to unfold with honesty, respect, and freedom. I choose myself, and I welcome those who freely choose me too. Feel the strength in those words. Let them become familiar. Every time you feel the urge to chase, return to your center. Every time doubt tells you that you are not enough, remind yourself that love should never demand that you become less of yourself. This is your transformation. You are no longer the version of yourself standing at the door of love, begging to be let in. You are becoming the version of yourself who knows that they belong in relationships where they are appreciated, respected, and genuinely wanted. Stop chasing the feeling of being chosen outside of yourself. Begin feeling chosen within. Let that inner security guide you forward. and allow every relationship in your life to meet the higher standard you are now setting. Your power returns the moment you stop running after love and finally remember that you deserve a love that can meet you halfway. The fourth powerful shift is learning to take control of the conversations that happen within your own mind. Long before you speak to anyone else, you are constantly speaking to yourself. You are creating inner conversations about your SP, about love, about relationships, and most importantly, about who you believe yourself to be. Sometimes these conversations are so familiar that you do not even notice them. You may imagine your SP rejecting you. You may replay old arguments. You may hear them saying things you fear they think. You may create painful scenes about being replaced, forgotten, ignored, or unwanted. And then, without realizing it, you spend hours emotionally reacting to a story that is happening only within your imagination. Today, you are invited to change that pattern. If your mind is going to create conversations, let those conversations support your peace, confidence, and vision of healthy mutual love. Your inner conversation is powerful because it influences the emotional state you repeatedly return to. If you constantly imagine rejection, you may begin approaching the relationship with fear. If you constantly rehearse abandonment, you may become anxious whenever there is silence. But when you consciously begin imagining conversations filled with warmth, respect, appreciation, and mutual affection, you give yourself a different emotional experience. You begin practicing security instead of panic. You begin becoming familiar with the feeling of being appreciated, instead of constantly preparing yourself to be disappointed. This is not about pretending you can force another person to think or say exactly what you imagine. It is about choosing not to use your imagination against yourself. So pause for a moment and ask yourself, what do I repeatedly hear in my mind when I think about my SP? Do I hear they do not care about you? Do I hear you are going to lose them? Do I hear you are not enough? If so, recognize that these are stories, fears, and assumptions, not necessarily facts. And even when a relationship has experienced difficulties, constantly repeating the worst possible story can keep you emotionally trapped in pain. You have the ability to choose a healthier inner dialogue. You can begin saying, I am worthy of being treated with care. I welcome honest and loving communication. I am open to relationships where affection is mutual and freely expressed. Imagine hearing the words that would make you feel safe and appreciated. Perhaps you imagine a loving conversation where you are told that your presence matters. Perhaps you imagine a moment of reconciliation filled with honesty and understanding. Perhaps you simply imagine sitting beside someone you care about and feeling peaceful, secure, and accepted. Do not use these scenes to create pressure or desperation. Allow them to become reminders of the emotional qualities you desire in a relationship. Let yourself feel respect. Let yourself feel warmth. Let yourself feel mutual love. The important shift is that you stop rehearsing emotional pain as though it is the only future available to you. This is where obsession mode takes on an entirely new meaning. Instead of obsessing over every word your SP says or does, become committed to observing your own inner voice. Become aware of the moments when your mind tries to pull you back into fear. When you catch yourself imagining rejection, do not attack yourself for it. Simply redirect. Say, that is the old story. I am choosing something different now. Then return to an inner conversation that supports your confidence. You might hear yourself saying, I am loved without having to beg. I am appreciated without having to perform. I am open to communication that is honest, warm, and mutual. The more consistently you practice this, the more you begin changing your relationship with uncertainty. You no longer need every external event to be perfect before you can feel secure. You understand that your inner peace is something you can consciously nurture. This does not mean ignoring reality or tolerating unhealthy behavior. If someone repeatedly disrespects you, violates your boundaries, or makes you feel unsafe, inner conversations are not a substitute for taking appropriate action. Healthy love includes consent, respect, honesty, and freedom. Your imagination should never become a reason to abandon your standards, so let your new inner story become stronger than your old fears. When doubt says, They will never understand how much I matter. Answer, I know my value, and I welcome people who recognize it. When fear says, I have to force this connection. Answer, I welcome what is mutual and freely chosen. When anxiety says, I am going to be forgotten. Answer, my worth is not dependent on constant reassurance. From this moment forward, choose your inner conversations with intention. Let them reflect the love you want to experience. Calm, mutual, respectful, affectionate, and emotionally safe. I am worthy of loving communication. I am worthy of being appreciated. I release the conversations that create fear, and I choose thoughts that strengthen my peace and self-respect. I welcome love that is freely given, mutually desired, and healthy for everyone involved. The greatest conversation you can change is the one happening inside you. Change that conversation, and you begin changing the way you experience yourself, love, and the possibilities you allow yourself to see. The fifth and final shift is to begin living as the version of yourself who expects healthy, powerful, and mutual love. This is where everything comes together. You have learned to stop defining yourself by rejection, to release the constant need for proof, to stop chasing, and to change the conversations happening within your mind. Now comes the deeper question. How do you actually live when you believe that you are worthy of love? What does your life look like when you no longer wake up every morning wondering whether someone else will finally make you feel important? The answer is simple, yet powerful. You begin living from the understanding that love is something you welcome, not something you have to desperately fight for. You stop placing your entire happiness in the hands of one person and begin creating a life that feels meaningful, peaceful, and complete within itself. This does not mean that you stop caring about your SP. It does not mean that your desire suddenly disappears, or that you must pretend you do not want the relationship you have imagined. You can absolutely desire someone and still maintain your sense of self. You can hope for communication while continuing to enjoy your day. You can imagine a beautiful future while remembering that genuine love must always involve mutual willingness, respect, honesty, and freedom. The goal is not to become emotionally cold. The goal is to become emotionally secure. There is a powerful difference between saying, I need this person to choose me so I can finally feel worthy, and saying, I know my worth and I welcome a relationship where we freely choose one another. Begin to embody that feeling now. If you truly believed that you were worthy of deep love, how would you treat yourself today? Would you spend every hour criticizing yourself? Would you ignore your own needs while waiting for a message? Would you accept disrespect simply because you were afraid of losing someone? Or would you begin raising the standard for how you allow yourself to be treated? The version of you who expects healthy love understands that self-respect is not a threat to romance. In fact, it is one of the strongest foundations for it. When you value yourself, you become more willing to communicate honestly, maintain boundaries, and recognize the difference between genuine affection and a connection that repeatedly drains your peace. This is the real meaning staying fully into your power. You stop asking, what do I have to do to make them want me? And begin asking, what kind of love do I want to experience? And how can I become emotionally ready to receive it? That question changes everything. It brings your attention away from controlling another person's behavior and back toward your own growth. Perhaps you want a relationship filled with affection. Then begin allowing yourself to receive affection without immediately doubting it. Perhaps you want commitment. Then practice becoming clear about your own values and needs. Perhaps you want to feel deeply desired. Then stop repeatedly telling yourself that you are unwanted. Your inner story should support the kind of relationship you hope to build. Let obsession mode now become a complete devotion to becoming your strongest, most secure, and most loving self. Become committed to your emotional peace. Become committed to your standards. Become committed to releasing the old belief that love only arrives through struggle. You do not have to prove that you are worthy by suffering. You do not have to chase someone endlessly to demonstrate that your feelings are real. Healthy love does not demand that you abandon yourself. Instead, it gives both people space to show up honestly and willingly. As you move through your days, begin carrying the energy of someone who expects good things without becoming desperate for immediate proof. Enjoy your life. Follow your interests. Take care of yourself. Celebrate your growth. Let yourself smile without wondering whether your SP is watching. Let yourself have a beautiful day even when your phone is quiet. This is not giving up on love. This is refusing to postpone your life until love arrives in a particular form. And if your SP is meant to be part of your journey, allow the connection to develop through genuine communication, mutual choice, and freely given affection. You do not need to force another person into a role they do not willingly choose. What you deserve is a love that can stand beside you without manipulation, pressure, or fear. You deserve someone who wants to participate in the connection as much as you do. So let this be the final declaration you carry with you. I am worthy of powerful, healthy, and mutual love. I do not chase what requires me to lose myself. I welcome affection that is freely given, communication that is honest, and commitment that is mutual. I am secure within myself, and I allow love to add to my life rather than become the only source of my happiness. I release fear, I release desperation, and I choose to live as someone who knows they are worthy of being deeply loved. This is the version of you that you are becoming now. Calm, confident, magnetic in your authenticity, open to love but no longer controlled by the fear of losing it. You are not waiting for another person to give you permission to feel valuable. You are choosing that value now.